after many questions, I've been asked to do these undisguised now, so I don't give a shit. So it's undisguised. Subscribe to this YouTube channel and stuff. I hope you can fucking understand them now, because people are moaning.
Hello, my name's Will. I am a real-life werewolf. I have done a number of interviews. I am in a lot of danger because I've come out and told these things, so life has got a little bit scary for me, because you can imagine being a werewolf is quite a secret thing to be. I'm telling you my philosophy on life and how I look at humans, and we're on part 3 of those interviews, and it's about the rise of the weak ones. It's about the rise of you as creatures that got to the top of the food pyramid. Louis, the producer, says please like this video and please subscribe if you can. That would be very nice of you. Also, in January 2021, there will be a website, www.werewolf.host, where I actually have an administration whatever bollocks, and you can contact me there if you want to ask a werewolf any questions, okay? This for me is to try and get the truth out there. As I say, I'm supposed to be coming back on the 16th of January to a live studio audience and some skeptics to actually transform in front of these human beings so that you can actually see me transform. I am not sure that I'm going to be around for that, either alive or asked, but I have promised Louis that I will do my best, and he's booked it, and apparently it costs quite a lot of money to book one of these places. So yes, anyway, so we're carrying on with the 3rd interview on why I really hate you fucking humans, and it's called The Rise of the Weak-Ass No-Ones. You hit Australia some 45,000 years ago, and you wiped out all the large creatures very quickly. You hit America 16,000 years ago and did the same, and you're still fucking doing it, to the point where you're going to annihilate your dumbass selves, you pricks. With the advent of fire, one single individual of your species could devastate a whole habitat by burning it. One of you could kill off thousands and thousands of organisms in one go. Why are you doing this? Well, you guys are weak, pathetic creatures who, with the accident of consciousness, got to the top of the food pyramid while not being physically prepared for it. Other predators took thousands of years to evolve to that stage. They evolved the teeth, the claws, and the predator's mindset, not fucking consciousness. You, for a long time in your earlier career, were low to the base level of the food pyramid. You had to wait for the scraps from the table of the other predators. You were waiting to get the bones of the creature that had been already stripped bare. You ate the fucking leftovers, the bone marrow of the emptied carcasses. Then you became top, laughably dog. The world had not got the developed checks that it had for other predators for your species. A mountain lion population would decrease if it hunted too many prey species due to starvation. This reduction in the number of mountain lions would then allow the prey species population to recover. The prey would not be hunted in such large numbers, which would mean that they could breed and the population would then increase. The more prey, then there is much more food for lions, so then more lions would be born due to the glut of food, and so on, and so on, and so on. This prey-predator link held the mountain lion's population in a fluctuating check. This does not work for you. Once you've depleted a food source from an area, you just move on to the next resource or choose another species to eat. You just fuck it up and move on. You became top of the food chain in most food webs and pyramids. You were able to cooperate, and with the invention of the tools that you used to attack and prepare food, you were able to take on together almost any other organism and best them. Not only that, but with your intellect you could reap the rewards from many different species and not particularly rely on one. Well, you could do that until there were too many of you, so you had to become fucking farmers. Well, maybe I got that wrong. Maybe becoming farmers meant there were too many of you. I don't know. It's chicken and egg, isn't it? The problem with your quick development of the intellectual self is that you still, in lots of ways, have the mind of the hunter-gatherer and the mind of the weak prey species. Now, look at you in the modern age. You are dying in droves because of your hunter-gatherer minds. You are dying of obesity. You are now dying of eating high-calorie foods that mean you get fat and die of it. You lack exercise and you lack the ability to be able to control your drives. You eat and eat until you die. Your mind is that of a hunter-gatherer. You eat the food that is there because tomorrow there may be no food. You choose sweet and high-fat foods because they contain the most calories, and you choose them because the body has deemed them to be the tastiest food. You're eating yourself to death. Oh, and we help the poor do this by making highly processed, high-calorific food cheap, while healthy, unprocessed foods are expensive. Crazy if you think about it. Fat monkeys are dying of heart issues. You are fucking omnivorous too, which means that you could go into almost any other creature's habitat and steal its resources until the interlinked systems fail. When they do fail, then you simply move on to the next system or the next food species. Not only that, but you would get together with your buddies and wipe out the competition for that resource with those tools or fire. This fire also allowed you to pre-digest the food that you ate. This meant that you could eat things that before cooking were not available to you. For example, the grass seeds like wheat. You could now cook them so that they could be digested by your gut. The cooking would also reduce the number of parasites and bacteria your food contained, meaning you could eat older foods and foods that would normally cause you harm. This also meant that it took a lot less effort to get the energy from the food. Without fire, you would all be doing a lot more masticating. That means chewing, you dirty-minded little fucker, not wanking. You would also need a much longer gut to absorb the nutrients if they were not cooked. This would be very energy-consuming in itself, so with the advent of cooking came the cognitive leap. The brain now could get enough energy much more easily to develop. Fire and cooking led to those big brains and the so-called intelligence that we see your species now have. Most species of the world have their special social systems based in their DNA. To change behavior, they need to have their genes change. In humans, with the cognitive breakthrough, this changed. You humans could change behavior by social construction. Systems that are thought about and made up but accepted and supported by the group will be followed. You are the first creatures to be able to do that, and that is why you are so very adaptable. You can also change your minds and follow a different system behaviors if you needed. You fit in with your peers in order to be one of the sheeple. Never stand out, never be special, which is a shame because at birth you could be one that changes the world. Here's a quote. The nature of being human is to do the unexpected, and every birth has the possibility of changing the world. That's by Hannah Arendt. But you don't want to fall into the trap that Heidegger noticed. You are thrown into the world unknowing and spend most of it not noticing yourself in being and not really noticing that you are alive. You don't live for the simple sake of living. You really have a lot of freedoms to choose, but you don't. You live to suit those around you as a general process. You fit the society you to come into and accept the archaic attitudes of those around you as the standard to follow. You also accept the practical necessities that are forced upon you even though they are not of your making. Very few people ever stop and just wonder at their sheer existence. Only in moments of existential crisis do you actually see how strange the world is. Otherwise, you humans just accept this crazy place as it is. You fucking bizarre weirdos. Look at the great philosopher Ferris Bueller. Life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around once in a while, you can miss it. The makers of that film recognized it and preached it, but you think it's just a funny line. It is the truth. No, you just accept that rules and the ideas that you're thrown into have to be followed even though they're just made up by society to keep you in line. You're fucking losers once more. You also don't see the connections. You are connected as a being to everything else around you, yet you cause little change. You accept your weak individual path. Your ego is small and not powerful enough to drive you. You treat the people around you as a means. You treat nature as a means, while in fact they should be treated more like the ends. You have to recognize that all around you is a being with you just because they are in the now with you. You are all being being at one and the same time. This means a unity of all, as you all have one thing in common at that moment. You are all being. If you got an understanding of this, you would enjoy the here and now in the now instead of in the past and the future. You do not have a lot of time before it's over, people, so you sheeple could be themselves if you wish to, but in reality you just slip into the societal system and become they self, one of them. This is all true for you, unlike me. Humans are mortal. I suppose if you describe me, I'm amortal. I can only die if destroyed by accident or by the endeavour of others. All humans can produce the improbable. They just don't accept the made-up societal norms of others. All humans are unique. They can choose to act in certain ways. They begin with the ability to change the world and are then pushed down routes that remove those possibilities. They drive themselves into obscurity. They have innate uniqueness and then they ruin it by fitting in and taking on the inadequacies of others. They are a miracle. Being born is a miracle. Humans can choose to act unlike animals. They don't have to work on instincts and animalistic behaviours and then they ruin it. They have free will. They can choose to give their life for another. They can choose to harm themselves. They have the freedom to choose. Another quote: I call an animal, a species, an individual corrupt when it loses its instincts, when it chooses, when it prefers what is harmful to it. And that's from Nietzsche and the Antichrist. Humans have decided that they are the pinnacle of evolution. If they don't believe the truth of evolution, then for thousands of years religion has put you as the masters of the earth with all the other creatures there to serve your needs. You claim to be the only rational and moral species in the mix. All others are red of tooth and claw. No, it's all wrong. You are not superior in my eyes by living made-up morals and stories or by placing yourself above the others that live on instincts. You have become weakened and pathetic, sickly and lost, yet sadly the most interesting of all the creatures. When you came together to coexist, you set up rules and laws that could be punished for and chastised by others. This set of made-up rules is not seen in other creatures. The problem with the moralization of the human spirit is the fact that our stronger animal selves have been suppressed and not allowed to thrive. This has led to what Nietzsche called a bad conscience, a will to self-torment. You have instincts that you wish to follow, but you don't because mortals and socialization have told you that they are bad. You have been domesticated yourself by this moralizing. You do not follow your instincts because of the fear of punishment and the laws that can be brought against you. This threat of punishment stole you away from your base instincts and made you safer to be around, made you more lethargic and easier to predict in your behaviours. It made you the sheeple that I've already mentioned. This domestication has been important for the building of societies, but it has turned you into a guilt-ridden, suffering beast, dependent on others to lead you through religious or civic order. The problem with domestication is that it does not make stronger, more independent creatures. It makes sickly, weakened ones that are safer to be around in large numbers. The fear of breaking the rules rules you. You have depressive emotions based on those fears, and worries are created around those moralistic rules that have been made to keep you on the socially acceptable straight and narrow. You are tamed human beings. You now think and consider too much. You rely too much on your consciousness to make decisions for you, and you no longer use the guide that has been there for you always, your animal side. Yes, it is there and it can overrule your human side, but when this happens you just become guilty and depressed, not being able to beat the animal inside all the time. You don't celebrate the animal, you bury it and pretend that the drives that it follows are base and unwanted. Sometimes it is right to follow your animal instincts and they have the right to rule over you, but with following them we may allow our beast within to be brought back to the surface. The bravest of us will allow that beast to rise through and confront it and use it in life. Hiding the beast away and not celebrating it will lead to depression and loss. In a perfect world, man would celebrate these basic instincts, celebrate them and use them to evolve in themselves towards a future where instincts align with the needs and the wants of people. Humans squash and quell these base instincts, thinking they are bad. Your animal side has been the reason you've got to this socialized and cultural stage. You should not turn your back on your animal side, but work with it like I do, to celebrate the instincts, to enjoy them and use them for a better life. In the past, it was the done and acceptable thing to seek glory and get notoriety in the world. These days, people are satisfied with a comfortable life. Sadly, people abandon this freedom and just become a function as they move through life. They give up thinking and acting for themselves and just accept the direction afforded to them by work or life in general. They become a passive reflection of their constructed environment. So in my mind, you are a fucking outbreak that the environment had not been able to respond to quick enough to keep in check. Even as a hunter-gatherer, you ruined entire ecological realms, changing them forever. A monkey-sized virus. Yet laughingly, because of your quick evolution, you still do it all within the fear-based position of a prey species. No ultimate confidence in your path. You are frightened for the continuation of your life. That's why you try so hard to steal the lives of others. Oh, and you do not limit it to other species. You're quite happy to destroy entire populations of your own species. If you can identify differences between your particular people and those particular people, then you're willing to kill for those differences. This destruction of your own is also easier if they have the resources that your people need. Let's look at what you did when you discovered South America. You killed off 90% of the population just by arriving with new diseases that the local people had no strategies for coping with or no immunity to. A little exploring and plundering group set sail from Cuba in the March of 1520. They had less than 1,000 people in the party, and they had come to seek their respective fortunes in the new continent. They rocked up on the shores of Mexico with ballistic weapons, horses, and more importantly, a slave carrying the smallpox virus. He was not sick himself at this stage. It was just sitting there inside him, ready to do its diseasey thing when ready. The carrier was a slave, but let us not even start on the slavery of your own species at this juncture. Let's just concentrate on the killing off of your own species in huge numbers. The poor slave soon became sick, and the virus came to the surface of his skin in the wonderfully disgusting pustules that this disease causes. The disease was then released into this new habitat of excitingly unprepared victims. He was taken into a local native home to be cared for, and soon infected the family, who in turn infected those around them. Within a couple of weeks, the town's population was wiped out, and those running away from the infection had the dubious honour of taking the disease with them. The Spanish could have not made a better weapon for the task of mass genocide if they tried. Soon the refugees from those infected towns moved across the continent, taking the gift of smallpox with them as they travelled. Tens of thousands were killed and bodies laid where they fell, as there was no one to deal with them, adding to the pestilence and the disease. By September of the same year, the virus entered the Aztec capital. This city was far different and much more impressive than any of the European cities the Spanish had seen. Long boulevards and many linked islands were found within its bounds, a truly beautiful place in comparison to the European cesspits. The city was clean and well maintained, a very healthy city. It even had its own zoo. The Spanish could not believe that the city was real and believed it to be enchanted, or that they had dreamed it. The clash of cultures was very significant. The Spanish saw the amazingly wealthy city festooned in gold and in silver. The Aztecs, however, saw these audacious Spanish arriving on horses that they had never seen before and carrying new and intriguing weapons. Its population of 250,000 people soon succumbed to the disease. A third of its folk were destroyed. Cortes had got lost in the lack of communication between Montezuma and his people. This was not communication between two countries that shared a border and a common or even close language. They were completely different. They had to have Spanish translated into Mayan, and then the Mayan translated into Aztec. The outcome of this miscommunication was that the Spanish had thought that the Aztecs had surrendered the city to them. In contrast, the Aztec king Montezuma thought that he'd accepted the surrender of the Spanish. The Spanish took the king and his nobles hostage and effectively ran the country, with Montezuma being the puppet leader of the Spanish. In a period of 10 months, the population of the empire decreased from 22 million down to 14 million. Smallpox was only the beginning of the people's misery. Then came the flu, then the measles. All this death from disease went on while the Spanish helped themselves to the resources of the nation. These separate but deadly diseases all took their sector of the population. By 1580, experts have guesstimated that the population of the native people had fallen to 2 million from 22 million, mainly through losses to disease. Now, you may make the argument this genocide was not your fault, but I disagree. I suppose if you said that even if you'd gone over there to be friends, that the same thing would have happened, that the people would still have been exposed to the diseases, these horrible diseases. Well, that may be true, but in this case, the Spanish wanted to occupy and take over the continent, not befriend the population. If they had not had the diseases on their side, they would have eventually achieved the same results in a much longer and bloodier way with sword, musket, and fire. Maybe the Aztec gods did their respective followers a favour with these diseases, taking the population away from abuse, slavery, and finally the protracted suffering offered by the Spanish invaders.